Good morning and welcome to Peace Out, where we are all learning together to peace out, right? And we've been doing this together now for a little over 4.5 years. Does it seem like it's been that long? It doesn't seem like it's been that long. Sometimes when I'm tired, it feels like it's been 10 years, but most of the time I think, really? It'll be 5 years in March. That's pretty cool, right? This week, we are talking about how God used natural things and things that are part of our day-to-day lives to perform supernatural feats, I guess we should say, right? So we've talked about several things this week, but yesterday actually, as I was studying and thinking and wondering what I might talk about, and I got this morning and studied it. It's in Judges 5, it's Judges 6, 7, maybe 8. I'm not sure. 6 and 7 definitely, maybe a little bit of 8, and it's the story of Gideon. And now Gideon didn't see himself like God saw him, right? He was hiding out to make sure the Midianites did not get his wheat this time, right? I don't see him as this fearful little dude. He may have thought that, right? And others may have thought that, but he was just saying, "You're not getting my wheat." And the angel comes to him and says, "You mighty man of valor." And Gideon's like, "You know what? If God's with us, why is all this happening?" Have you ever asked that? If God's with me, why are all these bad things happening? If God's in the world, why do bad things happen? Why do horrible things? We're seeing horrible things with the remnants of the hurricane that came. It wasn't the hurricane; it was a flooding after the hurricane. But because of the hurricane, just over North Carolina and Tennessee, we're seeing bad things. We see we if you I don't watch the news, but if you watch the news, you see lots of bad things, right, that are going on in our nation and in our world. And I'm like, you know, the presence of God doesn't mean that people are good. Just like you have soap in your bathroom, but that doesn't mean every person in the world is clean, right? Everybody don't take a shower, right? It's not, everybody doesn't apply it. So we've still got people who don't follow God. We still have natural things that just happen. God put things into motion like nature, and nature just happens, and things happen, and it can be bad, but it can also, we have times when it's good. And we just have to go back to, I'm just going to trust God no matter what. There's going to be stuff happening in a life because of our decisions, or the lack of decisions, whatever, right? We find ourselves in these positions, but God can find us if we're hiding out behind the wine press. He can find us if we're hiding out anywhere. David lived in a cave running from Saul, and God was with him in that cave. God was with Gideon right here in one of the darkest moments of his life, right? And so Gideon is, and he doesn't see himself as anything much. He didn't think he was anybody God could use. He certainly didn't think that somebody was going to write it down and we would be reading it in 2024, the story of how God took him and defeated an innumerable company of Midianites with 300 men. 300. As a matter of fact, Gideon started with a whole bunch more than that. He started with, I don't know, 10,000 or so, something like that. And I don't know, it was more than that because a whole bunch of them left. So I think 10,000 of them left. 22,000 of them went home. He stood up with them and he said, God said, "You have too many. You're going to think you did it yourself. So I want you to shuck it down a little bit." He said, "So tell anybody who's scared to go home." And 22,000 men went home. They were chicken. They were scared, and they weren't afraid to admit it though. But he said, if you have any fear, just go home. Basically, if you can't trust God for this, you don't need to be a part of it, right? And so we have to reevaluate ourselves and go, can we trust God? I'm looking at some things this morning. Chris is having a little asthma attack or something. And I'm like, I'm just going to trust God. That is my only option. I just am going to trust God no matter what the day brings or what it doesn't bring. I'm just going to trust God. And these 22,000 went, I'm just too scared. I don't trust you, Gideon. Maybe they just didn't see past Gideon, right? I don't think Gideon has. He was a dude hiding from the Midianites. He was a dude hiding over there. I don't think God is in this. And 22,000 of his warriors went home, right? But God said, you still got too many. So shuck them down some more. And he literally gave them a test and went down to 300 men. And God said, not you, I'm going to defeat the Midianites with 300 men. And you're going to marvel at it. And they're going to read about it in 2024 and probably in 2025 too. And it's going to be a story that's going to go down through the ages of a time when God stepped in and went, this one's mine, baby. I got you. Right. And so God did. 300 men. And they took a clay pot and a torch. Now, I don't know about you. And I'm really good with a gun, but I'm not practiced with a gun. but I'm a pretty good shot. But if I'm going to a battle, I don't want you to hand me a clay pot and a torch. I want my Musin gun, the sniper rifle. I want my sniper rifle because I can keep a distance that way, right? Yeah, I want a real weapon. At least give me a machete, something I feel like I can defend myself with. But you know what? That would have been the worst possible thing in this situation. They had no way to defend themselves with a torch and a plain old clay pot. And that was a good spot to be in. Why? Because it was God who was going to defend them. And so they stand up. Gideon divides them into companies of 300, 100s, and all at the same time they broke their clay pots, which made a loud noise. And I'm sure God probably magnified that a little bit, right? It made a big noise, and then all these lights came. These torches just showed up, and and all the men yelled, "The sword of the Lord, and the sword of Gideon!" And the Midianites got so scared they killed each other, and a bunch of them ran away, and it was over. God defeated the Midianite army, in a complete army with 300 men who weren't even armed for battle. They didn't wear their armor, as far as we know. They didn't have their sword. They had a torch and a plain old clay pot that was back then. It was handmade. There was no mass production, anything back then, right? They were handmade clay pots and a torch, and God used that to defeat the army. See, God will use whatever is at hand. He will use our circumstances to defeat our enemies. But the key is we've got to trust him. Now, Gideon, he's actually in my leadership book. I talk about him as one of the leaders that we look at, because he kind of messes up later. And we talk about what happens when leadership goes bad, or when leadership makes a bad decision, or what does leadership do when they make a mistake. They just repent and go on back to being a leader, right? It's no big deal. But they still do what God tells them to do. But Gideon he put out the fleece before God twice. He had to have a dream by one of the Midianites had a dream that prophesied Gideon's victory. The Midianites didn't even think they could win. Everybody but Gideon seemed to think God had that battle, right? But Gideon knew it was God, because it was more than he could do. And when we are in our circumstances in our lives, and we're trying to trust God, and we're trying to encourage ourselves in the Lord, all we got to do is look past ourselves, past our weaknesses, past our fears. Those are our enemies. As a matter of fact, we're not facing 600, an innumerable army of Midianites, but we're facing an innumerable amount of thoughts, emotions, feelings, past experiences, doubts that want us to not trust God. But with God, this clay pot can just trust God and let that light of God shine out. Break this clay pot and let God's light shine out, and the enemy's scattered. That might be fear for you. It might be doubt. It might be mistrust. It might be fill in the blank. I got a whole bunch more blanks I could fill in, right? But God can defeat our enemies when we give it all. We give this clay pot to him to be broken. Life crushes us. Life crushes this clay pot. But when we trust God, that light, that torch, the light of the glory of God is what's going to shine out when this clay pot gets crushed. When we get crushed, it's going to be God carrying us. When we get crushed, we learn to rely more on God and understand that he's got us. He has given us mercies for today. Not just mercy, singular. His mercies are new every morning. His grace is sufficient for every single situation, no matter what it is. But we got to break this clay pot and go, I'm going to trust God. I'm going to trust the light that he has in this world and in this heart. I'm going to trust everything he said in this word. I'm going to find me a scripture to hold on to, and I'm going to hold on to it with my last breath and the last ounce of strength, right? I'm going to hold on to what God says. He says that he always leads us into victory. He didn't tell Gideon, get your army, come together, and let's go get you smashed. Let's go make sure I'm going to make a spectacle out of you and let them just come and wipe you out, and then I'll repair you later. No, he never let anybody into battle to lose, ever. And the same thing is true today. We don't have to lose any battles, and we're definitely, as believers, never going to lose a war, right? All we have to do is just stay close to him, keep trusting him, and keep allowing his peace to reign in our hearts, no matter the whats, right? Peace out, you guys. I hope I said something made sense. Have a great day. See you again tomorrow.